Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be going over Palantir Technologies, the stock, and just kind of a base outline of it, what I think of it, how it looks. So I'm going to be going over it like assuming you have no prior knowledge of it, although if you're looking it up you probably do. So I will dive into a little bit deeper stuff as well. Also, I'm viewing this from an investing standpoint, not really a trading standpoint. So if you're more of a trader, you'll still be able to pick up hopefully some information about the stock from this, but maybe not necessarily. There may be other trading YouTubers that are better for it. So I'm just going to give my personal opinions. If you disagree, that's fine. But I do like this stock. I like the outlook. I like what they do a lot, and we're going to get into that later. So first thing I like to do whenever I look at a stock, right? I just like to look at the charts, right? Charts don't say everything, but they're a good metric to look at. And if the chart looks terrible, I personally like companies that are generally growing, that are successful, not necessarily looking for a penny stock that's going to shoot up. Although some people are, and if you are, that's fine. But that's not what this stock is. So the 1 year, 130%, that's phenomenal. Of course, 5 year, also 272%. And I think this is when it IP'd around this. IPO'd around this time. So if you go to the all, I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's virtually the exact same. It is the exact same. So it shot up really high at the beginning, up into COVID highs, right? It looks like actually they IPO'd during COVID, right? That later part of 2020. Shot up, had to retrace pretty substantially, right? People that bought around this would not be happy for a while, but we are above those highs there, 37. So recently we are, but even then, very few people bought at this time, and I'm assuming many of those sold. But if you did, awesome. You're still holding now. I actually knew someone who owned Palantir. It was like his first stock, and I think he was in around 20. So hopefully he held through it and realized these gains. We met in college, and he went off to a different one, but I hope he's doing well with it. I hope he held on, because even though it took some time, it's gone up. So chart looks fine to me personally. This is natural, and the whole market was down during this time as well. Yes, it's a bit exaggerated. Most stocks did not fall from, I don't know, let's be conservative and say from 26 to 8, right? But it's nothing too insane. PE looks crazy, right? It does, but that's not the full thing, because when we look at some of the earnings, this is a company that has just started to go profitable. So during this time, they were pre-profitability. There's nothing wrong with that. It's harder to judge a stock, but there is always that worry. Is this going to be a company that ever becomes profitable? And Palantir clearly has done that, as we'll see. Market cap, $83 billion. So this is not a small company. This isn't like a small cap or anything like that. There's many companies larger, but this is one of the bigger dogs. So I think it's got to be a top 10 or top 500 company, right? Yeah, for sure. It should be S&P 500 at this point. All right, let's move on to the Schwab tab. We can look a little bit as well. So PE, that's why you like to look at forward PE as well. So 104 PE, I mean, that's still a lot, but look, they are just starting to become profitable, right? They were not always a profitable company, which that sounds scary, but lots of companies, honestly, oftentimes you want to, when you're growing, right? You want to take the money that you make and just throw it straight into the company. So, and you still can do that while being profitable. But oftentimes you're just trying to raise money, and you're trying to expand, and you're trying to build out businesses. So it doesn't necessarily mean that pre-profitability that it's something terrible, but also it's just something to think of. But I am not concerned at all by this. This PE isn't. I hate to say it's normal, right? But for a company that's just become profitable, you'd expect this, right? This isn't something that's crazy. Like if I saw this on Apple, right, I would be like, oh, uh-oh. Companies that have been profitable for 5, 10, 20 years, you do not want to see P's high. It's either a lot of it's priced in, maybe something like Tesla, like the extremes of the hype being built into it. I think Wingstop is around this forward PE, something insane like that. And I'd tell you I'd much rather own Palantir than Wingstop, right? I mean, they're a fine business, but yeah. So looking at the chart and that, okay, so I mean, I assume most of you have a good understanding of what Palantir does, but if you don't, we're going to dive into a little bit. So Palantir builds into place software platforms for the intelligence community, assists in counterterrorism investigations, the United States, United Kingdom, internationally. Company provides Palantir Gotham, the software program which enables users to identify patterns, blah, blah, blah. Lots of software stuff, mostly in the defense industry, right? I love that. I love software company. If we go down here too, they're talking about integrating LLMs. Now, it seems like from this, they do a decent amount with LLMs, but maybe playing devil's advocate, a lot of companies are like, oh yeah, we do AI stuff, right? And you got to dive a little bit deeper into what they actually, is it more of like, yeah, we do this on the side, or is it? But I like Palantir. Look at some of the defense companies, right? Like, it's pretty nice. The government spends quite a lot of money on defense, and there's only so many companies that can give it to, right? Like Lockheed Martin, I understand maybe the moral not wanting to invest in a company like that, but Lockheed Martin is going to be successful, right? Governments are always going to invest money into defense. One thing when you look at a company, right? At least what I like to do. How is this going to be around in 50 years, right? Toothbrushes are going to be around in 50 years, right? I don't know, food. People are going to need food in 50 years. Healthcare. People are going to need healthcare in 50 years, right? It might look wildly different, right? But it's going to be, even cars, right? Cars may look wildly different, but Ford was around 100 years ago. It's probably going to be around in another 100 years, Maybe that's pushing a little bit, but at least 50, right? So when I look at that, I think at least from that aspect of it, there's always going to be the demand for something like this. Where was it? I'm going to see if I can find it in this. Yes, a platform that transforms the way the organizations operate by creating a central operating system for their data. Allows individual users to integrate and analyze the data in one place. That is awesome. I'm sure that's even really useful for you got to have really tight security measures for defense stuff, right? There was what was that? This was a couple months back, but when I'm trying to think of the company. I think it was CrowdStrike. They had that, or something similar, with all the airports and all the businesses shut down, right? So my understanding, at least a little bit, is they have even more advanced, but like for defense stuff. So security is big, and you can't, you don't want a bunch of different companies. So I think they're expanding outside of defense as well, but even then the defense is a nice, stable thing to lean on. So if we're going to look at, so that's some of the positive. Some of the risks. I guess theoretically a risk would be if politician was elected in the United States that was really anti-defense spending. We don't see that because, not to get political, but Republicans generally like spending on defense, and Democrats generally like spending in general. That's very broad, not trying to make a political statement, but so I don't see that, but it's possible, right? Maybe branching out into other areas just because the defense thing people don't want to associate. That sounds weird. I'm not sure if that's true. I'm just spitballing some risks, right? Every company has risks. And, not having it like this, as much as I think it's not a big issue in this case, making a little bit of revenue isn't the best, right? You always want more profitability. So a company coming out of a state where they were pre-profitability, it is a risk, right? It's something you have to factor into the whole picture, right? I don't think any of those risks are necessarily going to stop me from investing in this. Personally, I do not own any Palantir. I like to be very upfront with what I do and do not own. It's not because I don't like it, just because capital isn't infinite. So I do plan on owning Palantir, hopefully relatively soon. Also, I guess with just it rising so much. So from the investor outlook, I could see this like any company, right? You never know. This could, I'm assuming this will probably run sideways for a bit, right? It may continue to rise, but it has had like we said in this chart, over the last 1 year, it has gone up 135%. Is it going to go up 135% over the next year? Probably not, right? Is it going to go sideways? Who knows? It could go up 20%. It could even go down a little bit. But in a 3 to 5 year outlook, I don't have much concerns about the stock. I don't necessarily think it's going to be worth, it's 3x in the next 5 years. But I would assume this will be a successful company. I mean, so S&P 500, it gets 10%, roughly 12%, maybe more recently, year by year. So even if you get a 40 to 50% return over 2 to 3 years, that's good. I mean, it depends on what the broader market does too. I guess the other risk, kind of jumping around a bit, is if the market does go down a lot, what we see, like not even a recession, but like with fears, generally companies that are not pre-revenue, like pre-profitability, or like have high amounts of debt. I'm not going to dive too deep into financial sheets, but I'm assuming here, yeah, they do have, actually, that's really not bad at all. Not a lot of debt, not a lot of liabilities. So that's pretty phenomenal. You love to see that. And a great amount of assets. So, but even if it's not true, AMD had this happen too in 2022 and 2023, where they're so used to it being a company with high debt and growing. Growth companies like this are associated with risky, and so when markets go down, they generally fall more. So if the market does have a broad downturn, you could see this stock fall more than the average just because of association, guilty by association. But as an investor, I'm not necessarily worried about that, and so that's something more to keep in mind as a trader. And honestly, when stocks go down because of broad market things, people usually panic. That's when you're supposed to buy. That's when you get greedy and say, okay, this company is down, and this downturn isn't necessarily going to affect its bottom line too much. That's when you take action. So even if you buy some here, maybe don't put the max of what you are comfortable with if you don't own any, but put half or a quarter of what you want to have in eventually, and then DCA in over the next year or 2 or 3, right? Even if it goes up, then it's like, okay, I still made money on the money I have in, but I just, versus if it goes down, it'll be like, awesome, I didn't put it all in, so I'm not having to like, oh, now I have to put more money in, and this is more money than I wanted to allocate. So, but I'm assuming you all understand some of that investment stuff. Let's take a look at some opinions. So, you aren't necessarily getting crucified by Schwab here. It looks bad, but this is usually a 1-year outlook. I think this is a bit extreme. I would maybe have it more towards the CB. I like I said, over the last year, it's gone up a lot. I love this company long term. Short term, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I can't predict the future of any company, but I think it's roughly fairly valued right now. So if it keeps beating out earnings, I'm sure it'll keep jumping. But I don't necessarily think it's like, oh yeah, this company's just like going to go up 100% the next 2 months. If it does, great, and I'm rooting for it. And hopefully when I buy some, I'll be even more happy. But Morningstar does not like it, and I like this and I hate this, right? It's good to know like a moat, and I like the moat rating. But the fact that there's only 0, the implication here, right? None would be like a 0. Narrow to me, that's like a 2 or a 3, and then wide, which is like an 8 or a 9 or a 10. I hate this scaling system. Why can't we have like at least 5, right? So narrow moat. I would not say this is a narrow moat. I disagree. I definitely would lean more towards wide, just because they already have the contracts in place, right? You can't just like, hey, I'm going to go sell to the Defense Department. That's not easy. That's not how things work. So I disagree. If it was a scale of 1 to 10, I'd have it closer to a 7 or an 8 personally. This, to me, so I disagree. Argus likes it. I'm not going to dive into what each one of these is, but it seems like it's pretty, you get a wide range. Some people love it, right? Long on it. Some people, at least short term, are not a fan. And then the ESG score is not particularly high. I'm not going to dive into that. If you know what that is, you probably understand why I don't want to dive too much into it, as this is not a political channel. But anyways, that's most of the basic stuff I have in Palantir. I like the stock. I like it as a long-term hold. Not necessarily as it's going to go up 50% in the next month, right? But even if it was, how would I know that? So I'm planning on probably buying some, but of course, this isn't a recommendation, but just personal advice of what I would do, right, in this situation. And that's what I am planning to do. I'll probably DCA into this company over the course of a year or so. But it is one of the riskier holds, just because of the other things I'd mentioned earlier, right? Not super risky, but like, not super profitable. So like I said, when downturns happen. So I like to keep it diversified, so I'm not concerned about that. I have a lot of tech, which is probably why I haven't bought this yet, right? Because I'm already tech centric. There you can see some here, right? I love AMD. I did a video about that actually did well. But anyways, so I'm kind of getting off into rants now. So if you made it this far, leave a like or a comment or subscribe. I appreciate that. Obviously, I'm a very new channel. At the time of recording this, I have 1 subscriber. But if you did enjoy it, I would appreciate if you like, subscribe, any of that. But if you did, you'd probably enjoyed this at least decently or learned something. So I appreciate you just tuning in. So anyways, hope you have a good day, and thanks for checking the video out.